welcome to The End.
I'm Max.
And I'm Tina. And this is the mini-series where we talk about the good, the bad, and the just plain wild TV finales. This week we're talking about the good.
Yeah, 30 Rock.
The final episode of 30 Rock. Hogcock / Last Lunch, because we got another two-parter.
It feels kind of weird calling this a finale because, and I'm blatantly stealing this from you, I'm saying this so that they'll know, but this is less of a finale and more of an epilogue.
It is. So I'm glad you said that because our first little segment is going to be the 60-second recap previously on 30 Rock that I blatantly stole from This Had Oscar Buzz. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of a strange one because normally in a sitcom it's like, well, it's about a TV show that's kind of fake SNL. The end, right? I'm previewing that segment. Mm.
6 friends live and love in New York City.
Right. But it would be like if you were recapping the series and you were like, 6 friends live and love in New York City, and then 2 of them adopt twins and also move out of the city, and also one of them moves to Paris almost, but then changes her mind, but she's getting back. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. I know that's kind of our thing. Yes. But I cannot go off on Rachel and Ross right now. I will save it for next year when we do this miniseries again if we talk about Friends. We're not talking about Friends this season. Just
a heads up.
A heads up, in case you were wondering.
Friends is weird because the finale is neither very good nor very bad. It's a solid ending for the show.
I mean, in the format of our show, of our miniseries, I would classify Friends as a good finale. It's not as good as 30 Rock, so that's why we're doing 30 Rock instead. But yeah.
It's a solid finale. It gives you a good ending. You leave feeling good. But like honestly, I feel like Community had maybe 3 banger endings. I just found out a lot of people don't like the Yahoo season of Community. Why? It was so good. It's a little more low-key and melancholy, but, you know.
I mean, I have some ideas about why people might not have liked it, and I think a lot of those might be the amount of people in the cast that we lost. Right? Like, not having Shirley or Troy is a huge loss for that final season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do feel like it's still a solid, outing.
And Paget Brewster's character is an amazing addition to the team. And Abed even points out she should feel like a redundant character with him around, but she really isn't. She's so... And Keith David?
Oh, yeah. No, I like what they... Hey, you don't have to convince me. I like that last season. Although, again, with this particular miniseries, I think we might eventually cover that, but I think we'll cover the fake finale before we cover the real finale.
I'm less attached to the fake finale. It would have been a solid place to end the show.
Yeah.
But... Oh,
and just to throw that out there for this season, our fake finale is going to be, we're going to talk about Buffy.
Yeah, we're finally going to actually talk about Buffy on the show.
I know, right?
I wonder if we'll end up talking about Charmed the whole time. Flip it.
Here's why Charmed is better than the season 5 finale of Buffy. Oh my god, I felt like I was going to burst into flames just saying that. Okay, 30 Rock. I'm going to read the IMDb entry, and then we'll put 60 seconds on the clock. You're going to recap the show, and then whatever time is remaining, see to me, and I'll fill in any gaps I feel like need to go in there, because just like last time, I rewatched the whole series.
And I didn't.
Although, unlike last time, I feel like you've seen the series many, many times, whereas, that wasn't the case with How I Met Your Mother.
No.
Okay, the IMDb summary is, Liz Lemon, head writer of the sketch comedy show TGS with Tracy Jordan, must deal with an arrogant new boss and a crazy new star while trying to run a successful television show without losing her mind. I mean, that's not inaccurate. All right, I'm going to put 60 seconds on the clock. You ready?
All right. Liz Lemon is a showrunner for a SNL-style comedy. She has a disastrous personal life, starts getting mentored by the new head of NBC, Jack Donaghy. The two of them form a deep bond, mentor-mentee. She ends up getting married. Her show is canceled. He gets married, loses his wife, has a child, becomes the big boss when NBC is bought by Comcast, but still feels dissatisfied, especially because of the loose thread left by the last words of his mother. His emotionally abusive mother.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm going to fill in a couple gaps.
Okay.
In this final season, Liz has finally gotten her personal life on track. She has married her longtime boyfriend, Christopher Cross, played by James Marsden.
Mm-hmm.
And she has, at the end of last episode, adopted 2 children. She's been trying to have kids for basically the whole show. She adopted 2 children, and I'm out of time. Cabletown is actually Comcast. Okay, wait, I feel like I need to explain that. Yeah, so the show took place at Real NBC. It was a fake show at Real NBC, and so when NBC was being bought by Comcast, they basically did that entire plot with Cabletown buying NBC. And the thing had been, Jack, her mentor, head of NBC in the show, played by Alec Baldwin, was a GE executive. So kind of being taken away from GE and being stuck with Cabletown when they got bought was a big issue for him in that last season. And as you said, he is now the CEO of Cabletown. Mm-hmm. And, okay, I'm not going to name names, but I am going to say that I do know a person who works at NBC who did mention that the portrayal of the Cabletown executives on 30 Rock was not entirely inaccurate from the way the Comcast executives were.
All right.
Just want to throw that out there.
So, yeah, the last episode gave us a pretty definitive end. Liz's show has been canceled.
And I think this is important. It wasn't just canceled. She was doing her kind of last-ditch effort to save the show, but the children she was adopting were arriving that day, unexpectedly. And so she left that kind of last-ditch effort to save the show. At the last moment, she realized she needed to choose her personal life over her work life and her, work-life balance struggle.
Which has been her thing throughout the whole show, that she will constantly sacrifice her personal life for work. And it's a decision that never pays off for her. Mm-hmm. It's mentioned, she's well off, but not that well off.
Well, yeah.
She's pretty wealthy. I mean, she owns a giant apartment in New York. But, as Jack mentioned, she has less than $10,000 in her savings account, so... Well,
let me just throw out there, just as a human, let me throw out there, your job does not love you. You should choose life over work-life balance.
Yeah, which the show makes really clear a lot.
And I appreciate in this show, one of the reasons she's trying so hard to save the show is because she's worried about all of the people who are employed by the show being put out of a job. And when they realize that the reason she needs to abandon them is to go pick up her children, they're like, yes, of course you should go. And so she goes,
Yeah.
So that was where we left it. And are we ready to jump into the episode?
Yes, the episode opens with Liz getting her children and husband ready for school and work, respectively.
Yes, her husband used to own a hot dog van. He sold hot dogs out of a van.
Yes.
And he has now, because Liz is out of a job, has taken a job at a dental office as a receptionist. And she's doing the stay-at-home mom thing. So she gets them out the door and then immediately makes a huge mistake and sits down and logs onto the internet. Specifically, the, parenting Facebook groups. Always a mistake. Always a mistake.
So bad. So bad. She's looking to buy a girl's bike, which she is, of course, immediately torn to shreds because, I'm sorry, you're buying a gender-specific bike for your child. What's a girl's bike? And
then they're like, why are you buying a bike and not a helmet? And she's like, of course I'm going to buy a helmet. And then another mom is like, helmets are as bad as vaccines. It goes off.
They inhibit brain growth, which this is such an accurate depiction of being on the internet.
Yeah, and especially being a parent on the internet. Oh my God. Meanwhile, at Cabletown, Jack has pulled out this, corporate...
The Six Sigma...
Wheel of Success. Six Sigma, by the way, is a real thing. It's a real, bizarre corporate skull and bones group. Anyway, this is how Cabletown is going to dominate everything, or whatever.
Yes, they're going to take over the world of paying for television.
Yes. Liz shows up at Jack's office, and Jack's assistant, who is always jealous of their very close mentor-mentee relationship, tries to stop her, but she goes right in, and of course Jack is happy to see her.
Yeah. The two of them have had I feel like symbiotic's probably the best word for it. The two of them, in the Jack and Liz relationship it's the core of 30 Rock, and it's really, really interesting how they play off each other. It's clear that the two of them do need each other. They fill this bizarre niche in each other's lives.
Well, I mean, it's one of my favorite relationships on television in the way that it is close and, like, deeply personal and in no way romantic.
And there's a great episode that talks about that when they go and they find out that Jack's mother had become happy in a lesbian relationship before dying, and Jack's mother's lover, wife. I'm gonna go with wife just because it's easy. Partner. Yeah, partner. Jack's dead mom's partner assumes that the two of them are a couple, and they're not, obviously. And Liz actually asks Jack about it. She's like, we are closer than, like, you are the closest relationship in my life, and I know I'm the closest relationship in yours. Why did this never become romantic?
I love the way she asked that question too. It's something I think about a lot. I'm sorry, I'm gonna put a pin in that right for a second. She says, obviously us hooking up would have been a mistake, but is it the kind of mistake I should have made? Like, have I not taken enough chances in life? What does it say about me that this very obvious thing never happened with us? And of course, Jack's response is that what they had is different and special. It's way more special than, them hooking up. And then to take that pin out, I told you that I feel like 30 Rock has affected me as far as, like, random lines I say more than even The Simpsons has, and you're like, you never say those lines. And okay, maybe I never say them out loud, I guess, but I have to tell you, these lines just live in my head. My internal monologue is completely informed by 30 Rock. Like, one of the things I think is this a mistake I should have made? And just to name a few others, that, like, I want to go to there and shut it down. And, of course, everyone in the world shares the Hello Fellow Kids meme.
Yes, Hello Fellow Kids is a classic.
Yeah. So, also, at the point where they're getting married and Liz specifically doesn't want to do a big fancy wedding, and Chris is trying to talk her into, like, following her heart, as it were. He says, it's okay to want these kinds of frilly things. And it's okay to, like, be a woman and want...
To be a human woman.
And she says, no, it's the worst! Because of society! And I do say that one a lot.
Yes, that is one I've heard you say a lot.
Anyway, the point is the language of 30 Rock has entirely informed my internal monologue. But that's funny, though, that you mentioned the episode where they go to Florida and meet Colleen, Jack's mother's partner. Because when you said that they addressed that, I thought you were going to talk about the episode Mrs. Donaghy.
Where they accidentally get married.
And when they accidentally get married, HR is like, this is disastrous. A manager marrying a subordinate like this is going to cause all sorts of ripples. There's going to be all sorts of favoritism. And, they argue, well, first of all, we don't have a real relationship. It was an accidental wedding. It was a total mix-up. It's a fake marriage plot, whatever.
Yeah.
And then he, points out to them that their relationship is closer than any romance, right? They're each other's person. And, okay, when I say they're each other's person, that's a phrase that came from Grey's Anatomy, right? Like, Christina is Meredith's person. Meredith is Christina's person. And the original origin of that line is that when Christina is going to get an abortion, actually, she needs to put someone down as her in case of emergency, and she doesn't have anyone, but Meredith is the person she's closest to. Meredith is her person, and she puts her down. And that's where the origin of, like, I'm your person came from. And Jack and Liz are each other's emergency contact.
Yes.
They're each other's person. So, yes, they've always had a really important, really close relationship, and I love that. And it's glad that we got into it, because this episode's kind of going to address that.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's telling Jack that she's completely at odds now that she's a stay-at-home mom, because she's been, working so hard, a really intense job for years and years, and she just doesn't know how to do this. Also, when I said she adopted children, I know a lot of people think of infant adoption. She adopted children who are like 8 years old, so they're off at school. Like, she's got nothing to do right now except find a place to buy a children's bike, I guess.
Yes. So Jack and Liz kind of both point out to each other that they both have what they've been wanting for so long, and yet neither one of them seems particularly happy about it.
Mm-hmm. Which is brilliant. For the show to end with both of them getting what they want, but then the finale to be them being like, wait, is this what makes me happy? That's brilliant, in my opinion.
Yeah, Jack has this big speech about all the power he has, and Liz is like, yeah, but you didn't say that any of that made you happy. And he's like,
It should.
It should.
It should make me happy. One of the things that's been bothering Jack this whole last season is that Cabletown doesn't make anything. He worked for GE, he made light bulbs, and now he's part of a company that doesn't make anything, and that's,
except money.
Right?
Like, it's that Caesar cried because he had no more worlds to conquer or whatever, which sounds like a real
Alexander wept.
Alexander wept, which sounds like a real quote, but it's actually from Star Trek.
No, it's not.
Google it.
Oh my god, is this gonna be like, am I gonna get this twice in one day? No, it's from Ozymandias. Hang on. Oh my god, Googling. Okay, Alexander wept quote. Yeah, it's from Plutarch.
Okay.
Wait, hold on.
Is it attributed to Plutarch, but it's actually not? That's just what they said in Star Trek.
Hold on.
Oh wait, no, it's from Die Hard.
It is!
It's from Die Hard, that's right.
It's from Die Hard!
Yeah.
Hans Gruber says it's from Plutarch, but that's not true!
Yeah.
Oh my god! How is this?
You should keep this in.
I'm going to!
Yeah. I just read that recently as something that, because all of those things that sound like they're actually from stuff, it was trending on Twitter. And someone pointed out that quote only appears in Die Hard. And then people just assumed it was actually a Plutarch thing.
And Alexander wept, seeing as he had no more worlds to conquer. Oh my god! My mind is blown. And dear listener, if you don't follow me on Blue Sky, and statistically you probably don't, you would not know that this is the second time in 2 days that this has happened to me! We were talking about the BoJack Horseman episode,
Times Arrow.
And I genuinely thought that the quote from that episode, Time's arrow neither stops nor... it's Time's arrow neither recedes nor stops, it marches ever forward. I thought that was a quote from something. And to be fair, the reason I thought that was a quote from something is because I knew that there was a Star Trek Next Generation episode called Time's Arrow. And what I didn't know, and I should have known, is that there's also an Arthur C. Clarke time travel story called Time's Arrow. But that quote is not from either of them. That quote originates from BoJack Horseman. My mind is blown right now. Oh my god.
Yes, so much stuff is just plain fake, right?
Yeah, well, and just to point out my favorite example of this, which our listeners probably are aware of, which is, I will face God and walk backwards into hell, which is an amazing quote that goes so hard, and is from a Drill shitpost.
Oh, Drill.
I don't even care. I love that quote. I will, you know what? I will get that quote tattooed on my body because I love it so much.
You should also get the one about him standing outside of his ex-wife's house, licking the mail and blasting Hit the Road Jack.
I won't get that one tattooed.
It's also a classic Drill bit.
Is that why his name is Drill?
Oh my god, is it?
I don't know. Probably not, but who knows anymore? Apparently Hans Gruber is the origin of and Alexander wept, for he had no more worlds to conquer.
I like that he tricked an entire probably multiple generations of people into thinking that was a real thing.
I don't even, all right, let's go back to, I am leaving all this in, by the way. Okay, let's go back to 30 Rock. Okay, you know what we didn't mention at all in our recap of 30 Rock?
Jenna or Tracy.
Okay, we didn't, but we'll talk about them when we get to them, because we also didn't talk about Kenneth the Page, which is what we're dealing with now.
Ah, yes.
So, Kenneth the Page is, as the words I just said implies, a page at NBC, and also throughout the show, hints are given that he is also an immortal being who exists, who is ageless and exists for some sort of reason to guide people to goodness.
Specifically, it is implied, if not outright stated, that he is an angel sent by God.
He definitely implies he's an angel at one point. When he there, because I've watched this. Right,
he spoke at birth to his mother and told her that he was not an actual baby, but just a vessel for a divine being whose name, if she spoke it, would make her melt.
Yes, and then in a different episode, Jenna asks him if she's the worst person he knows, and he says, well, you know, they say only God and the angels can judge, so I'm gonna tell you. Yes, and of course, this is all confirmed by the end of this finale.
Yes.
But yes,
one of the things I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, please, go ahead.
One of the things I love about 30 Rock, and it follows through to, honestly, mostly Tracy Wigfield shows, but one of the things I love about 30 Rock is that it is a show where magic canonically exists, but it doesn't really affect the plot all that much. Like, there's a holiday that is dedicated to celebrating a fish monster that lives under the sea.
In the Marianas Trench.
In the Marianas Trench, and he trades candy for children's tears. There's a Jim Carrey movie about him, and he is real. He exists. Like, voodoo exists in this world. This is a commonly known thing. Like, there's a lot of stuff. Magic is out and out real in 30 Rock, but it doesn't affect the plot at all, and that's something I love.
Can we talk about the way that the way that 30 Rock has kind of affected culture without ever really being that popular a show? First of all, I mean, Hello Fellow Kids is just there, right? Yeah. That's just a line now. And also, you said there is a holiday dedicated to this fish monster. You didn't say what the holiday is, but it is Leap Day, right?
Yeah.
This is how Leap Day is celebrated, and the monster that you refer to is Leap Day Williams.
Yes.
And since this episode aired, I mean, I know I personally have made sure to wear blue and yellow on Leap Day, as is tradition.
Yes.
And I have seen other people doing it as well. Like, it's a thing now.
Yeah, it's like St. Spurgeon's Day from that James Joyce novel that makes you want to eat your own face when you try to read it. Ulysses, right? It's the one with St. Spurgeon's Day. Or whatever.
I don't know what St. Spurgeon's Day is, though.
It's the holiday the guy in the book is trying to celebrate, and there are a bunch of people who follow his, like, trek around the city.
Oh. But I would say even that is less of an impact than Leap Day.
Yeah, because that's just a few weirdos. This is a few cool weirdos. Not to come out hard at James Joyce for no reason.
Yeah, there's always a reason to come out hard at James Joyce. Anyway, Kenneth, in addition to being an immortal being, is also really, really into television. He loves it more than anything, and he knows more about it than basically anyone. And at the end of the last episode, finale style, he was made head of NBC when Jack was promoted to head of Cabletown. So Kenneth is now in charge of NBC. And I don't know if this is going to be boring for people or not, so I don't know if I'm going to actually do this. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that's really amazing about this finale is the way that so much of it references and pulls in running jokes that have been going through the whole series and kind of wraps up all of the running jokes without being annoying about it, without being like gratuitous or fan servicey about it.
Yeah.
And there is a line in the first season where Jack says about Kenneth, in 5 years we'll all be working for him or dead by his hand.
Took a little more than 5 years, but he did get demoted once, so...
He got demoted twice. Yeah, so yeah. Kenneth is now in charge. He's leading some of the Cabletown executives around NBC, and Tracy Jordan wants to talk to Ken. Tracy Jordan is played by Tracy Morgan.
He's... I don't want to be mean, but the albatross around the neck of 30 Rock.
He is, as they say on Television Without Pity, the Pierce, in reference to Pierce from Community. He's the character who's just like, it would be better if he wasn't there. But you know what though? I'm actually going to disagree with you here.
Okay.
I do believe that probably working with Tracy Morgan was hard, as evidenced by the fact that everybody comes back for Tina Fey shows, but he has not.
Mm.
He is the Nicholas Brendan of this show.
Oof.
But I would actually say Tracy Jordan is pretty important. Oh, another.
Oh no, the character's important. The fact that he's played by Tracy Morgan is what's difficult about.
I think his comedic timing and his kind of deadpan absurdism not only works really well with the show, but it gives it some of its best moments and some of its best lines. I mean, come on. Speaking of pop culture, permanency, live every week like it's Shark Week. Yes!
Although, probably my favorite Tracy Morgan bit is the, don't make me show you the back of my hand, and then there's a note taped on it that says, please be nice to me.
Yeah, I mean, basically his whole character is just really fancy wordplay, and I love it. Like, and it's unexpected wordplay. At one point, he tells Kenneth to take his car back to his house. His address is in his GPS under Da Crib, because he lives on 54 Da Crib Avenue.
I mean, one of my favorite things is the money pit he has in Connecticut. That's literally just a pit that he throws money into.
Yes.
Or, there's a lot of good Tracy Jordan bits. Tracy Jordan is a good character. It's just, Tracy Jordan is a good character. Tracy Morgan is not a good actor. So, we're stuck in this, I personally am stuck in this weird position where Tracy Jordan would not be the character that he is without the limitations of Tracy Morgan as an actor, which is a difficult thing to reconcile, because I'm like, Tracy Morgan is the albatross around the neck of 30 Rock, but also he's a lot of what makes the show work.
Mm-hmm.
So he's bad at what he does, but the character's good, and the show really works because of the character, even though the whole character is written around the limitations of Tracy Morgan.
Okay, but see, that actually makes sense to me, right? Having to write around certain limitations can produce great art.
Or Baywatch.
Okay, but this isn't Baywatch. This is great art. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say this is great art.
Yeah.
So it's funny that I just called him the Pierce, because the Pierce is famously the character on Community played by Chevy Chase, who was brought in essentially so the show could get made. Mm. And Tracy's character on 30 Rock was added to the show within a show, TGS.
The girly show. Yes.
The girly show, which became TGS with Tracy Jordan. And so he's basically been the star of the show within a show for, since this show started. And Kenneth, as the page, basically was his assistant, his work wife, did everything for him. And now Kenneth is head of the network, and Tracy is adamant that he must talk to Kenneth.
Well, Kenneth went really above and beyond. He's basically kind of in a very weird way, he's a parental figure to both Tracy and Jenna.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's the doting caretaker mother to Liz Lemon's firm father figure-ness.
Yeah, that does work. Yeah.
So, mom and dad, as they are having a discussion.
Yes, after visiting with Jack, Liz has gone down to talk to Kenneth. She wants to get back to work, and she wants to work for NBC as a writer. She tells him that she wants to pitch a show about a woman writer in New York with kids trying to have it all.
And he says no, because All of those words are on his list of TV no-nos.
Yeah, people don't want to watch shows about women writers in New York, which I feel like is, of course, a dig at this show because, nobody watched this show, which is weird because, and in fact, okay, listen, I paused so that we can see the list of no-no words that shows up on the screen, and the list of the things that are on the list are conflict, urban, woman, divorce, shows about shows, which of course this is.
Writer.
Justin Bartha, dramedy, New York, again this show. High concept, complex, niche, quality, edgy, blog, and immortal characters, which is great because that's also, obviously Kenneth is an immortal character.
Although weirdly enough, yes, this is clearly a reference to Kenneth, but there were a couple of shows with the premise of an immortal character around that time. I might be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure New Amsterdam is about a guy who couldn't die.
I thought it was about a hospital.
It might be. It might be about a hospital. I feel like it was New Amsterdam, but it might have been like...
Well, I mean...
There were a lot of shows that had names like that.
Well, I mean, this is when, vampires were big.
Yeah. It had that guy who played Mr. Fantastic in the early 2000s, Ion Gerfold or whatever.
I don't know. I'm glad you pointed this out though, because this is kind of a weirdness about this show. Kenneth is the head of NBC now.
Mm-hmm.
But from everything we've seen about NBC, the comedy division and the reality TV division are basically all that exists. There's a couple references to Heroes, but for the most part, NBC is just the comedy division. And immortal characters are definitely the purview of...
Drama. Yeah.
Although, a couple of episodes ago, Kenneth referenced the TV show Jennifer Lived Here, which is a show about a ghost who gives a teen boy advice. Oh. Okay, I'm sure it's on YouTube, we'll watch some. Although, I guess that's a good example, because that show didn't last long. And I guess a ghost is the opposite of an immortal character. Oh, man. Okay, I can't go down this path. Let's go back to the show.
So, Kenneth turns down her
idea for a show about, a woman writer in New York. She says that she thinks she can make a good, funny show that people want to watch without sacrificing quality, and he points out that quality is on the list. And then...
Although, again, one of the things I really like about Liz as a character is the show's really clear that Liz is not as smart as she thinks she is.
Oh, yes. 100%. That's one of the things that I love about Liz. That's one of the things I love about this whole show is that all of the characters are ridiculous. And the show doesn't want us to take them too seriously. This is a point that we are going to return to often in our next podcast, Welcome to the Sunset Strip, when we talk about Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, and contrast it with 30 Rock, because Aaron Sorkin wants you to think those characters are the smartest people who ever lived.
Yes.
And honestly, the reason 30 Rock is so much better than Studio 60 is because we are not expected to believe that Fart Doctor is high art, like we are supposed to believe that Pimp My Trike is.
Yep.
So, speaking of moments that are kind of live in my head all the time, this next moment lives in my head all the time, when Liz says that fine, she's not gonna bring her show to NBC, she's gonna go to cable, where they have more money and moments are allowed to land, and then she's cut off instantly to cut to the next scene. I think about that all the time, especially when I'm watching a cable show that goes on too long. I'm like, cable, where moments are allowed to land.
Yeah. So Jenna is upset because no one is...
Wait, we need to say who Jenna is. We never did.
Yes, Jenna was the original star of The Girly Show. She's Liz's friend, ? No,
she's definitely her best friend. Just also maybe a frenemy.
Yes.
She's like the definition of frenemy.
She's an actress. She was the main actress in TGS until Tracy showed up.
And what's important is Liz and Jenna came up in Chicago together in the improv circuit. Another my head all the time.
No, you don't.
When we see how bad Jenna was at improv.
It's such a sub-joke, the fact that she knows instead of yes ands Liz's thing.
Yes, exactly.
Because the joke is clearly that she's misread the situation that Liz has presented, but also she goes against the first rule of improv.
But yeah, so Liz wrote the girly show for Jenna, a sketch show for Jenna to appear in. And Jenna is a really interesting character. She's like she's the blonde, temperamental actress, the very stereotype of the...
Well, she's a white dwarf star.
Ooh, is that a TV tropes phrase? I've never heard it, but I really like it, and it kind of completely, describes what she is.
Yeah, it's someone who is famous, but their career is on the brink of collapse, or is already collapsing.
Mm-hmm.
It's someone who is very clearly at the end of their fame path, and things are only going to get worse as time goes on.
So I will try to remember to link a YouTube video to... in the notes of this podcast, that covers the fact that Jenna was originally not played by Jane Krakowski, who she's played by, but in the pilot was played by Rachel Dratch.
Sorry.
Oh.
No, go.
In the pilot, she was supposed to be played by Rachel Dratch, which is...
radically different. It would be a radically different show.
And it's interesting because watching... This particular YouTuber put clips of... the pilot as it is and the pilot as it was shot next to each other. And it's the same scene, the same lines, but you can really see why it didn't work with Rachel Dratch. So 2 big reasons it doesn't work with Rachel Dratch. One is that she's just too close to Liz. They're both kind of downer characters. They're both like, Rachel Dratch's character on SNL, Debbie Downer. Like, they're both Debbie Downer characters. And the other reason it doesn't work is because... it feels really punching down on her when things go wrong for her. Whereas Jenna's ego is so big and so unpoppable that anytime something tries to take her down, it's just...
Also, Jenna's a genuinely horrible person. In a way, I feel like the character would not have been played if it was played by, if she was played by Rachel Dratch.
Yeah, it would have really been a different show.
Yeah. It's interesting because in the unaired pilot and, in the beginning of the show, Liz had a lot more of a support system before Jack. She had original Jenna, who, there's a line that sticks with me from the pilot, which is clearly written with, the Rachel Dratch incarnation of Jenna in mind, where Liz tells Jenna that, you're my rock, you're the only reason I get through the day. Like... that clearly is a line not for our Jenna.
Right.
And also, Pete, really early on, is a support system for Liz in a way he isn't later, because the show needs Liz and Jack to have this very codependent relationship.
Yeah, Pete, the character, is also a producer on 30 Rock, and we'll talk about him when he comes up. But he's also a producer on 30 Rock. He's a producer on TGS. And he feels like he was meant to have more of the role that Jack has, but Alec Baldwin just came in and that became the role.
Like, he was originally supposed to be the antagonist of the show. And then that just didn't happen because the two of them had such an instant great rapport.
Yeah. And, when we talked about Liz and Jack's relationship, we talked about how they kind of give each other different things, right? We didn't explicitly say it, but, Jack is the one who chooses business over love, right? And Liz is the one who eventually realizes she needs to choose her life over her work balance. And they balance each other out. She keeps him from being too cutthroat and corporate, and he keeps her from losing all of her money and ending up teaching, and ending up having to teach improv classes to seniors, which it's fine if that's what you do, but yeah.
Liz would hate it.
And she consistently has no plan, and he keeps explaining to her that she needs to have a plan, financially, career-wise, all of that stuff. And even if you do have a good work-life balance, you have to have a plan. And Liz and Jenna have the same thing. There's an episode where they have a fight, and they both try to seek out new friend groups. And Liz ends up with a friend who's just like her, and they just wander around complaining about stuff for 15 minutes before she realizes she needs somebody who is not as much of a downer as she is, somebody who will let her vent, but not feed into it because she's not really listening.
Yeah.
And that's what the show would have been with Rachel Dratch.
Yes.
As much as I love Rachel Dratch.
Yes, I also love Rachel Dratch. It's a real pity that she hasn't found, like, a big project yet. She's always fun in stuff.
Yeah, I mean, she's a great character actress, and she just needs to find the role that, like, highlights that, I think. I mean, she doesn't need career advice from me. I'm sure she's doing fine. But I would really love to... I'm rooting for her. I'm rooting for her to, like, break out big.
Yeah.
So, as you were saying, Jenna comes into the writer's room where everyone is packing up their stuff because, the show's canceled now.
Yeah, she's complaining because no one is paying any attention to her anymore. And Frank, one of the other main characters who we don't really have to talk about, he points out, yeah, the show's over. We don't need to listen to you ever again. Like, you have no power over us anymore.
I know I just said that this show does not deal with NBC doing dramas, but Jenna announces that, you know what, comedy's beneath her. From now on, she's only going to do drama, and she storms out of the writer's room, saying her iconic line, "Goodbye forever, you factory reject dildos."
She has a great exit line every time she exits the writer's room in this episode, and it's weird how often really iconic stuff shows up in finales. Like, the line, "You can't just give up, is that what a dinosaur would do?"
From the finale of Friends?
Yeah, is like Joey's best line in the entire show, and it comes in the last episode.
I mean, you know that I think Joey's best line in the whole show is...
the moo point.
It's a moo point. It's like a point a cow would make. It's moo. So, Jack has gone down to Kenneth's office to talk to Kenneth about the fact that he essentially has everything he ever wanted and he does not feel fulfilled. This is a good thing to talk to Kenneth about because Kenneth has everything he ever wanted and is 100% fulfilled now.
Yeah.
He's gotten what he's been saying he wanted the whole show, and it all worked out.
And he tells Jack, okay, maybe you need to reevaluate your priorities. And he's like, oh, I know, I can just use my business thing. I can just apply my business thing to my personal life. And then I will solve my personal life. And Kenneth's like, I don't think that's how that works.
Okay, you're giving Kenneth way too much credit because he says, you can't chase happiness. It's like trying to think about breathing. And then all of a sudden he stops being able to breathe because he's thinking about it too much. After this scene concludes, Tracy comes back up to try to find Kenneth to try to speak with him. And his assistant tells Tracy that he's not available. And Tracy, okay, this is what I mean. I love all of his lines. He tells her to tell Kenneth that he came. Tracy Jordan.
From the promise.
From his promise. And Kenneth's promise, by the way, was his promise that he would always be there for him, even if he became head of the network. Which is a promise he made like 3 years ago. This show's got continuity.
Yeah.
But he says he's Tracy Jordan. T as in the drink. R as in the pirate noise. A as in the noise Fonzie makes. C as in sea monster. Y as in, why do we even bother to make friends if they're going to abandon us? J is in the bird, and then it cuts off. I love that. I love that whole sequence.
So Liz is sitting alone in her apartment, and she says, and this line I do not think was in the original airing. Like, I really think this is a version I haven't seen before, because I did not remember this line until we rewatched it. Liz is sitting alone in her apartment, and she idly muses to herself, I wonder if I have all the ingredients to make meth.
Okay, I meant to and did not check. We are watching it on Peacock, but this show is also on Hulu. I meant to go to the Hulu cut and see if that line was in there.
Mm. Oh yeah, I definitely watched it through Hulu before.
Should I just do that?
No, this is already really long.
Okay. Listeners, if you have Hulu, go check for us and tweet at us on Blue Sky?
Yeah.
Tweet at us on Blue Sky and let us know.
Twitter's not using it anymore.
Right? Yeah. Let us know if that line is in the Hulu cut. And There's also a joke that is cut from this episode that I know that joke is cut. And when we get to there, like, also check that Hulu episode and see if that joke that's cut out of Last Lunch is in there. So.
Oh, we really need to start speedrunning this.
I know, we're not even halfway through, and we have been talking for almost an hour. Can't help it, the show's so good.
Yes. So, Liz goes back onto the parenting forum. Huge mistake. And immediately gets into it with this,
other parent.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, I want to point out a thing that's happening because we see, as she's typing, the words appear on the screen. And one of the things about parenting forums that is, like, so hyper-specific and so true that they're capturing is the way everything is an abbreviation. So when she says, I'm a new stay-at-home mom, but of course it's SAHM.
Satum.
Yeah, SAHM. Recently left a high-powered job, but it's HPJ. Like, this is just there are so many acronyms on parenting forums. Oh, and
darling child and darling husband creep me out.
Do you know why those are?
Why?
So DC and DH, darling child and darling husband, are because if you're feeling good about your family, it's darling, but if you're feeling bad about them, it's damn. And you could just do DH and DC.
Jesus Christ.
I was going to say, just FYI, another acronym, FYI, if any of you become new parents and are on parenting boards, I'm going to let you know right now, FTM on parenting boards means first-time mother.
Yeah, something good to keep straight.
Also, NPR means not parenting related, and I still see that one and go, National Public Radio?
Yeah, come on. That was already a thing before. I mean, I know a lot of the other ones are too, but
like our child is 4, so I've been on those boards for at least 4 years, and I'm still like, NPR? Oh, not parenting related. Oh, also, our child is an only child.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently joined a new parenting forum. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. Why is Liz doing this to herself? Why am I doing this to myself? Anyway, I recently joined a new parenting group for parents of only children.
Mm-hmm.
And the acronym in there that I'm not used to yet is OAD, which is one and done.
Okay. Yeah, that.
I'm just saying, they're everywhere and they throw me off. Also, if you don't have children yet, but you're thinking about having children, TTC is trying to conceive. You'll see that one all over the place too. Anyway, yes, she gets into it with another parent because that parent feels like she is...
the parent feels like she's not appreciating being a stay-at-home mom enough. The other parent, it's Chris. Let's just say...
okay.
Chris talks about how much he does not like working and how much he wishes he was at home with his kids. And it's easy, and she's probably just bad at it. And that's why she doesn't like it. And Liz is like, okay, let's fight then.
Yep, let's go to the park and fight. 10 minutes right now. I'll be the one in the purple sweater, wrapping a swing around some skank's neck. Of course, she does not know it's Chris. And I just have to point out the thing Chris says. Another thing that lives in my head. Yeah. When he says, she says she misses working, and Chris says, you miss having 40 emails from Jerry, all with a red exclamation point? They can't all be urgent, Jerry!
So, I don't care for this little montage. I get it. It's a little too cartoony, even for me. It shows Jack, he creates the work circle.
The Six Sigma, yeah, thing.
And then he reassigns... Instead of business things, it's,
sex and relationship, hobbies, philanthropy.
Family.
Yeah. So then we get a montage of him becoming perfect at his job and being the best dad ever and helping a homeless guy get a job at NBC. And...
he does some karate.
Which is hobbies.
Yeah. And probably the best joke out of all of these is him arranging a 3-way relationship between 2 prior love interests in this show. Mm-hmm. So now he's ending the show in a 3-way relationship with Elise. With Elise and Nancy.
So Elise is played by Salma Hayek, and Nancy is played by
Julianne Moore.
Julianne Moore doing a cartoonish Boston accent.
It's fantastic. I love it.
And it doesn't happen here, but later on, they're both speaking in a British accent. They say he fucked them so good that they lost their accents.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's his montage. He has completed all of his goals and crushed life, so now he should be happy. Spoiler alert, he's not.
Speaking of not being happy, Jenna is on the set of Law & Order SVU, and she finds out that she's not going to be playing a super special reoccurring character, but instead a dead person.
Yep.
One of my favorite bits happens here where she's like, no, I have to be a star. If I'm not, then I can't do horrible stuff like this. And she hits a PA, and then the next minute, we see Richard Belzer walking onto set, and he also hits the same PA, and he's like, okay, let's get recording.
I want to point out that the director of this episode of Law & Order is the same recurring director. Every time we see, like, a minor thing on this show that's not related to TGS, he's the director of it. So we saw him, I think the first time we ever see him is directing Garfield 3,
yes.
Feline Groovy. He's obviously directing this episode. He directed the TV movie that Jack made when his wife went missing. Oh, by the way, you said he lost his wife in the recap. I just want to clarify.
She's
an hour later,
yeah.
She isn't dead. She was a reporter and she was kidnapped by North Korea. And she
got returned,
yeah.
But she didn't love Jack anymore after that.
And they got divorced, yeah.
Yeah. He also directed the Connecticut propaganda movie in I Heart Connecticut.
Oh, yes, Take My Hand.
Yeah, which started out as a Saw-esque murder movie and then eventually became a propaganda movie for Connecticut about how great Connecticut is.
And it actually started off as a rom-com.
Yes.
And then it turned into a horror movie, and then a propaganda movie so they could get the tax credit from Connecticut.
Yes, and they referenced a library I used to go to as a child, which was a little surreal.
Oh, that's cool. That's, okay, in the episode where Jack is, we discover that his secret shameful hobby is collecting cookie jars.
Yeah.
He mentions the Cookie Jar Collectors Expo in Sarasota, Florida, which is where I grew up, and that was surreal for me.
Yeah.
So, since this SVU episode isn't working out, Jenna returns to the writer's room to tell them that she is only going to do film now.
So she's off to LA.
She's off to LA. And then we go to Riverside Park, where Liz is going to meet up with the person that she was fighting with on the forum, who is, of course, Chris.
Yeah, Chris is about to attack a woman in a purple sweater.
Well, because she said, I'll be the one in the purple sweater.
Yeah, and Liz luckily stops him before he physically assaults this woman.
Yep, she's like, yeah, it was me. I'm the one you were fighting with. And they realize that Chris hates working. He wants to be the one who stays at home. And Liz hates being home. And they're like, oh, we fucked this up. We did it backwards. We should have flipped it.
Yeah, like, we understand what our roles are, so
yeah,
let's lean into them.
Mm-hmm. Chris is like, obviously, you should be the dad. You're a great dad.
Yeah. You're stern and slightly withholding, and I'm,
mm-hmm.
warm and emotional. And that's why there's a great episode where they kind of explore why Chris and Liz work, which is basically that, they kind of work for the same reasons she and Jenna work.
But, like, in a good way. In a non-toxic way.
Yeah, in a positive way. He also stops her from spiraling.
Uh-huh. But he's like, caring. He gives her, the support that she needs. And none of the judgment.
Yeah.
And she gives him the stability that he needs. Because he was selling hot dogs out of a van.
Yeah. So Liz is like, you know what? I'm just going to go to Kenneth. I'm going to be like, I will do whatever, corny.
I will make your stupid sitcoms.
Yeah.
And back at 30 Rock. Oh, 30 Rock is 30 Rockefeller Plaza, where the real NBC is housed, by the way.
Yes.
In case we didn't say that. So anyway, back at 30 Rock, Kenneth and Jack are speaking again, and Jack is like, I am happy again. Aren't I happy? And Kenneth is like, well, if you have to ask if you're happy, you're probably not happy.
And Jack's like, no, I solved life.
Yeah, he solved happiness. And in fact, the board of Cabletown comes in to tell Jack that the Democrats, this is Occupy Wall Street time, by the way, when this finale is airing, the Democrats have heard what his salary is, and they are so angry that they are burning him in effigy. All the Democrats, Pelosi, Baldwin.
Yes.
That was maybe a little too, like...
That was a little too much.
A little too sweaty, but...
Yeah, all of his enemies are defeated and writhing before him in agony, and he feels nothing.
Yeah, we close on the rather melancholy thing of him erasing all of the circles he's filled in.
Well, specifically work.
Yeah. I mean, I assume he was going to erase all of them. But
yeah.
Back in Kenneth's office, Liz is waiting to pitch her show about John Hardly. He loves his family, but he hates the rat race. He's hardly working.
Kenneth passes on it.
Like, immediately, Kenneth is like, oh, pass.
Yeah.
But he does tell Liz that he needs her to film one last episode of TGS, because it turns out that Tracy's contract involves a massive payout to him if they don't film at least 150 episodes, and they have filmed 149.
And Liz is like, I need a job. And Kenneth's like, look, this is something to do for now.
Yeah, he's like, I got this. Plus, since they were canceled kind of abruptly, this is the chance for them to do, like, an actual finale.
Yeah, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Back in Tracy's dressing room, he's upset that Kenneth has not come down to talk to him. And he knows that Kenneth isn't that busy. He saw on the assistant's computer that his schedule was empty, but he still won't come talk to Tracy. And Tracy is really frustrated. His entourage, Grizz and .com.
Yes, there used to be a lot more people in his entourage at the beginning of the show, but honestly, they got it perfect with Grizz and .com.
They really are. Yeah, Grizz and .com, his entourage, tell him that, Kenneth has more important things to do now. He can't cater to Tracy. But Tracy, storms up to Kenneth's office and demands to talk to him. Kenneth is like, I called you many times. And Tracy's like, I don't answer my phone. And Tracy tells him what he needs from him, which is he needs him to forget his promise. Because when Tracy became famous, people came out of the woodwork wanting things from him. And he does not want to be that person for Kenneth now that Kenneth is head of the network. So he wants to release Kenneth from his promise that he will always take care of him.
The same way he released the snakes he was keeping in his dressing room.
Okay. I mean, they have to end it with a joke, but I like this moment. I think this is, like, really sweet, and I think this is a real moment of, like, emotional growth for Tracy.
Yeah.
Even though he immediately begins, like, demanding things of Kenneth, but that's just because that's who he is. He's used to people catering to him.
Yeah. So Liz goes to see Jack, and she's like, look, I need a job. Just get me a job doing whatever. I don't care. I need the money.
And Jack tells her that he wishes he could help, but he just quit Cabletown. His dream job. The job that he has been trying so hard for. You're right, he was just erasing work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yep, he quit his job. And this is, like, super serious. Liz is like... Hold on. Jack gives her the advice that she needs to not focus so much on work because that's all he did, and now he feels empty and unsatisfied. And she's like, are you fucking kidding me? Our whole relationship is you giving me advice, and now you're telling me that you don't actually know what you're doing?
Are you just an alcoholic with a great voice?
Amazing.
And, I mean, this is a great moment because we've talked a lot about how the two balance each other out, but, like, Jack has been this solid, dependable guy for Liz. Mm-hmm. Like, Jack has been the one to give her practical life advice.
He gives her stability the way that she gives Jenna and Chris stability. And now, not only is that not happening, but he's basically telling her that he didn't know what he was doing at all. Everything he taught her is basically a lie. And also, it's her fault that he doesn't know what he's doing because she's the one who sucked him into all of her problems, and now he is, stuck here adrift, not knowing what he's doing. They made each other worse. And she's like, okay, we were just a boss, an employee, and now we're not, and you're dead to me.
Yeah.
It's really emotional, honestly.
It is, and Jack is trying to... Comfort is probably the wrong word. Like, he's like, look, you can't get lost in work like I did. It's not making me happy. And she's like, no, I did the other thing. I went out and got the family, and now I need to support them. Like, you can't tell me that I don't need the thing I need to keep the thing that I should be prioritizing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I feel like she doesn't really bring that up, but that is true. Like, Jack is acting like people don't need money, which is easy for him to say.
Meanwhile, over the credits, Jenna arrives in LA, sees how hot everyone is, and immediately turns back and gets right back on the plane.
Yep, she's shut it down. She shows back up at the TGS writer's room and tells them that she is returning to her first love, Broadway. And we never get a scene of her returning to Broadway, but we know that that is in fact what happens.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. The thing that doesn't have, like, the thing that is what sticks, we don't get a failure scene of. But yeah, because we know that she is in fact, again, the continuity on this show, she is going to star in the musical stage version of a play she did in the first season called...
A movie she did in the first.
Oh, I said a play? Yeah, I'm sorry. A movie. I'm not even going to cut it. Yeah, a movie that she did in the first season called The Rural Juror.
I was never a huge fan of that joke. It wasn't bad or anything, but I do like the last thing. And it did give us Verna, which... The whole Barbara Walters thing is great.
Okay, so a thing that they were doing in the first couple of seasons was having Rachel Dratch fill several roles, much like a sketch show. And
your mother Verna and spurned her.
Right. So she is. So the joke of The Rural Juror is that for a long time people can't tell what the title of the film is because
The Verger.
The Verger. And just in case it's not clear for us, The Rural Juror. Like, as in the guy who serves on a jury in the countryside. The Rural Juror.
Yes.
By Kevin Grisham.
Yes.
John Grisham's brother. And, you know, she appears on Barbara Walters, who famously has that kind of lilting speech pattern. And so there's the whole runner, which I actually quite like. You know... When your father left your mother Verna, when he spurned her, did that hurt her? I like it. And as you said, because of that joke, her mother's name is Verna.
Yeah.
And also, in 40 minutes, we're going to hear Jenna's song from The Rural Juror. And I love the kind of patter tongue twister that it starts out with.
Yes. It's not quite that song in Schmigadoon where clearly the lyricist was testing Kirsten Chenoweth.
Yes.
Their Trouble in River City riff, they're like, we're going to write the most difficult song ever to sing and just give it to Kirsten Chenoweth. And she almost does it. It is a credit to her that she almost pulls it off. I legitimately believe no one could sing that song.
I just want to point out Schmigadoon, a musical TV show that also has Jane Krakowski in it.
Yes.
All right. Pete.
Okay, we're going to touch on Pete just real fast. He's also a producer in the show. He's kind of... What's a good way to describe Pete?
Pete is the... He is the... Shemizel.
Yes.
Okay, so... Essentially, there's an episode in this show where everybody has to do a self-evaluation. And when he says where he wants to be in 5 years, he says exactly where I am now. And when Jack calls him on not having any ambition, he points out that his life has been on a pretty steep downward trajectory. So to be exactly where he is now would be great. He was...
Okay, I love Pete's backstory because he's someone who had an incredible number of things going for him at one point, and then in about 10 years lost literally everything.
Yeah, he was an Olympic. He almost he got the yips, so he failed at the last moment, but he almost qualified to go to the Olympics in archery.
He was a member of the band Loverboy, who you might know from the song Everybody's Working for the Weekend, which is an insane song if you look at the lyrics. What is it about?
But it is. But he quit to go to college.
And he had to drop out of college when he got his girlfriend pregnant 3 minutes into their first date.
Yep. And then, of course, he married her. That's his wife, Paula. And she actually got pregnant twice within the first 5 months of their relationship. She had overlapping pregnancies.
So he had to drop out of college to take care of the hundreds of kids he has had with his wife.
Like, he was on track to become a senator, and now he is, like, the second producer on The Girly Show.
Oh, yeah, he was also on track to become a senator. Like, he had so much stuff going for him, and then he lost it all so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's the producer on a show which is very, very close to being canceled for all of the run of 30 Rock.
And now is, in fact, canceled.
Yeah.
And in this finale, there's this weird runner. And again, continuity. Because in an earlier episode where Liz, for reasons having to do with that episode, is trying to get somebody's birth certificate, and he mentions that it's really difficult to get somebody else's birth certificate, he's been trying to get one.
I mean, there's been lots of little stuff, too, in the episode where Liz's father has his... I was going to say midlife crisis, but very, very late in life crisis. Pete talks about how admirable it is to, go out and just forge a new identity for yourself. There's been a lot of hints that Pete has been thinking about running away for a while.
And in this scene, we see Pete and Liz talking in the hallway of 30 Rock, and he gets a phone call, and he's like, oh, it's work, I gotta take this. He takes on an entirely different accent, and he's clearly an insurance salesman. He's selling insurance. And she's like, I don't have time for this nonsense.
Under a different name, too. He's like, hi, I'm John Gregson.
Yeah. So Liz runs into Tracy and they kind of square off. Because if for some reason this show does not happen, he's going to get his huge payout. So he has every reason to sabotage this show happening. And it's funny you said that... Jack was originally supposed to be the antagonist, which is true, but I would say that really Tracy is the one who became the antagonist of the show.
Yes. Depending on what season you're watching, but frequently, yes, Tracy is the opposing force that has to be overcome for the show to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Although that hat gets passed around a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
So, it feels weird to have a completely different subplot come up in the last... Because these episodes are clearly separate episodes. As you could tell, it's not a two-parter. But it did feel like we had to cover both of them.
It aired as one chunk when it originally aired. But yeah, it is two separate episodes. It is strange.
Like, it's two separate episodes, but it would have been weird to just talk about this episode.
Yes. So... Liz goes into the writer's room. It is time to order the last lunch. And Lutz, who is the one in the office in the writer's room that everyone hates, it's his turn to choose lunch, and he chooses Blimpies.
He's the Jerry, if you like Parks and Rec. He's the, I don't know, Kevin in The Office. Does The Office not really have a character like that?
No, he's the Meg in Family Guy.
He's the Meg in Family Guy. He's the Bill in King of the Hill.
The Klaus in American Dad.
Yeah, he's the character all of the other characters shit on. And,
for good reason. They live in New York City. They get to choose one last lunch that NBC will pay for. Liz is like, she comes in and you think she's going to talk about the show. She's like, this is our chance to finally get things right. One last lunch on NBC.
Yeah.
And he wants to order Blimpies.
Well, to be clear, he wants to do it for revenge purposes.
Yes, although he doesn't say that until his speech later, but yes.
I think it's pretty clear that that's what he's intending from right off the bat.
I guess so. Jack comes down to Liz's office, and Liz is like, yeah, we're not friends anymore, you can go. And he tries to make amends with her, and she is not hearing it.
Everyone is leaving because a Snow-a-Cane is coming with some white lady named like Derva or something.
Snow-a-Cane is some white lady named like Dorva. Yeah, it turns out that Tracy bribed Al Roker to go on the news and say that there was a giant snow cane coming to hit 30 Rockefeller Plaza and everyone should go home. Liz is like, no, this isn't happening. Everybody get back to work.
Liz barges into Tracy's dressing room, and she's like, you are being so selfish right now. Everyone is having a final chance to say goodbye, and you just can't let them have a nice goodbye. And he's like, I've never had a nice goodbye before. Why should anyone else get one?
Yeah. Jack goes to talk to Jenna in her dressing room and basically say that Liz is being really weird to him. They had a fight and now she's not talking to him. And Jenna's like, yeah, Liz can fucking hold a grudge. I don't know if you've met Liz Lemon, but she can hold a grudge forever. If she decides to cut you out of her life, you're out of her life forever.
It's weird that this is something Jenna's concerned about, considering the fact that she fucked Dennis, but...
Oh, who is Liz's trash boyfriend in the first few seasons.
Yes, and also definitely messed around with her brother.
Oh, no, she had sex with her brother and is open about that.
Yeah. So it's weird that she feels weird about telling, like, she's like, I can't, Liz will cut anyone off for any reason. I can't even tell her about that one time I Frenched her dad.
I think it's clear that Liz and Jenna's relationship is kind of an exception to this she holds a grudge and will cut people off thing.
Yeah.
And that's because Liz needs Jenna. And spoiler alert, she needs Jack too.
Although I think that we might be past the point in her life where she needs Jenna now that she has Chris, because we do not get any implication that the two of them stayed in contact afterwards.
Ooh. That's a good point.
It's okay, Jenna has Paul, who grounds her in a different way.
I love Paul, and we're not going to talk about him at all because he doesn't appear in the finale.
Which is too bad, but I get it. They had a lot of other stuff to cover.
And we do not have time to get into Paul last name. Although...
One of the greatest characters in television history.
Although at this point, Paul and Jenna are married, and remember, when they married, he took both her first and last name. So they're the Jenna Maronis. Oh.
Even though everyone knows the health benefits of a regular sitting.
We cannot get into Paul. Cannot get into Paul. Anyway, Jack begins crying in Jenna's office, dressing room. Just gross crying about how he's gonna lose Liz and this is an important friendship, blah, blah, blah.
Oh no, you look like the flashcard they tell me means upset. That's from a different episode.
Yeah, what she actually says here is, no, Daddy, don't cry! Because he's got that, father figure thing going on. Anyway, she runs to tell Liz that Jack is crying, and Liz is like, whatever, he's fine. And Jenna's like, he just quit, the most important job of his life. He's acting weird, he's crying in my dressing room. Maybe you should pay a little attention to this.
And Liz is like, no, my thing is more important. I'm not getting sucked into any more Jack drama.
Which is unfortunate because Jack comes onto the stage to say a heartfelt and teary goodbye to everyone.
This is majorly suspicious behavior to anyone except Liz, who is purposely avoiding thinking about why Jack might be talking like this.
Yup. In the writer's room, Lutz is handing out menus for Blimpies. And the writers try to come up with a way to rules lawyer around him being the picker. And this is where there's a cut... it's not really a joke, it's just a cut sequence. They say that this is technically a new season, which means because they normally pick who chooses alphabetically, so it's actually it should actually cycle back to the beginning, and he has paperwork that he has legally changed his name to Aaron Aardvark. But that isn't in this Peacock cut.
Yeah.
So then they decide that whenever there's a dispute, it's handled by drawing names out of the coffee can. I mean, that's been their rule. And he's written his name on flypaper so that when the other writers reach in, they pull out his name. He's been 10 steps ahead of them this whole time.
So Jenna was told that she gets to sing a song for the last episode, which she loves singing. And she's rehearsing her song from the musical adaptation of The Rural Juror. And Kenneth comes in and he's like, it feels really insincere. And she's like, I'm a very insincere person, Kenneth. I don't have genuine emotions about things.
She says, acting is just a series of tricks. If you want to act drunk, you wear 2 different size shoes. If you want to cry, you just clutch a piece of glass in your hand. And he tells her to think about things that she's going to miss that are going to make her feel sad. And of course, Jenna, being the narcissist she is, says, well, I don't know who I'm going to miss. I'm the only one here.
Oof.
Meanwhile, in the hallway, Pete has run into Liz. He's wearing a giant necklace that says Pete, and he's like, I always wear this necklace. I love this necklace. In fact, if I ever disappear and you only find the necklace, don't think about it too hard. Just bury the necklace.
Liz points out, she's like, what's going on with Jack? He's giving away all of his stuff that's so unlike Jack.
I like this. She says, you're wearing Jack's watch, and Pete goes, oh yeah, that's not part of it.
Yeah. It's great.
Jack just gave this to me. And he's the one who says to Liz, like, he's obviously going to kill himself.
As he puts it, it looks like someone's got a case of the kablooies.
But of course, a real man doesn't kill himself. A real man fakes his own death. And then he goes off on a whole thing about faking your death, because obviously that's his plot. He's going to fake his death.
I'm going to withdraw $60 from an ATM the day before it happens.
No. You deposit.
Yeah, you deposit. Yeah.
Because who would deposit money if they were, thinking about running away?
So Jack says something weird to Liz. He calls her Elizabeth, and he's like, your light always shone the brightest. And Liz is like, Jack, I don't have time for this right now.
But she's starting to get worried. She's like, are you going to be at the show tonight? And he's like, I don't know where I'll be, but I'll be watching you from wherever I am. She's like, oh, fuck. And then she doesn't have time to dwell on that because she realized that Tracy has taken off, and they've got to go find Tracy.
She immediately goes to Grison.com and she's like, I know you guys know where he is. Can you just tell me? And I love how this conflict resolves itself.
Okay, but before we get to the conflict resolving itself, one of my favorite weird cartoony jokes happens here.
Yeah.
Grizz says that he's really distracted because he's just inherited a bed and breakfast from his uncle. And then the little chyron appears on the screen like they used to do on network television, advertising the show coming up next. And it shows the next show coming up, Grizz and Hers, premiering this Friday. And Liz looks down and she's like, does anyone else see that?
Yeah, she's a little freak out, but then no one else acknowledges it. So she's like, okay, moving on.
I do want to point that out, though, because spoilers, I guess, for what we're going to talk about in 20 minutes. In the end, when Liz is working on another show, the show she's working on is that show, Grizz and Hers.
Yes.
But the way the conflict resolves itself.
Yes, Tracy gave them both very different amounts of money to not tell Liz where he was.
Yeah, he gave one of them $1 million and one of them $20,000. So .com is like, oh, fuck that guy. He's at the strip club. Where else would he be?
So the writer's room calls Liz in because they're like, you have to make him choose something else. He's refusing to choose anything other than Blimpies. And Lutz is like, yeah, as revenge, because it's me, Native American, bisexual, 51-year-old Lutz.
Which is a thing because for the whole series, it's been like, how old is he actually? What is his sexuality actually? Is he actually part Native American? Which he said he was in one episode.
Yes.
Anyway, Liz is not having it. She locks him in her office.
She shoves him into the office, rips the doorknob off.
And then she tells her assistant, Suri, order sushi and cupcakes. I will be back. I have to go to a strip club and get Tracy. And again, this is a callback to the very first episode of the series when she had to go to the strip club Tracy was hanging out at and convince him to come be on the show.
So Liz and Tracy have this little conversation about their relationship, and oh my god, this is one of my favorite moments of television ever. Liz's speech to Tracy here.
Yes. So Tracy does not want to do the show because he doesn't want to say goodbye. It's
everyone in his life who ever left just left.
And even his dad just said he was going out for cigarettes and then never came back. And Liz is like, it's not the end, we're all going to be friends. And Tracy says, is that the white lady version of I'm going out for cigarettes?
And she has this speech about how she says she's going to call him, but she doesn't know if she will. And eventually they're probably going to lose touch. But even though working with him was hard and he was a very difficult person, she loved him.
The line she says, which again,
oh god, it's my
lives
favorite.
in my brain because the human heart is not properly connected to the human brain. I love you. It's so good.
It's so good.
And one of the things I love about this is she says, I'll see on the news that it's your birthday and I'll forget to call you. And we actually see in the wrap-up that is not the case. In the wrap-up, we see her calling him to wish him a happy birthday. And it's really nice. So, yeah, Tracy says he will come back and do the show and everything's okay. But first he makes her watch the very perverted skank train that is happening on stage, which of course we do not see because this is network television. Back at 30 Rock, Kenneth has figured out the thing to do to make Jenna genuinely feel sad, and that is remove the mirror from her dressing room because she doesn't need it anymore, but they need it.
And then we get a montage of all of the times she was looking in the mirror.
And I love this. She turns to Kenneth and she's like, am I crying? And she looks where the mirror used to be and she says, I have no way of knowing if I'm crying. Amazing. Amazing.
It's so good. So, all of the food has arrived from the fancy sushi place and the fancy cupcake place, and Liz feels guilt because motherhood has made her weak, so she opens her office only to find Lutz is no longer there.
Yep, he has crawled through the drop ceiling, which is a bad idea because I don't know if you're aware of this, but a drop ceiling doesn't actually support the weight of humans, and he falls directly onto the table filled with sushi and cake and insists that they order Blimpies. And Liz finally gives in, says to order Blimpies.
I'm assuming Blimpies was not happy about this.
How could they possibly have been?
Because his speech about how Blimpies is his revenge, I mean...
Yeah, it paints a pretty gross picture of Blimpies.
Okay, so Jerry Seinfeld said about his Pop-Tarts movie, we don't want this to be like the Barbie movie. Which,
why not?
Wait, okay, that was the quote, and everyone was like, why not? The Barbie movie was widely beloved, and it made $1 bajillion.
Well, I mean, success?
Yeah, success on both of those fronts with his stupid Pop-Tart movie, which, everyone hated. But what he meant was he didn't want the movie to seem like it was paid for by Pop-Tart. Which, okay, whatever. You can be sure Blimpies didn't pay for this.
Yup.
Also, one of the great Simpsons lines from one of the not great seasons or episodes, the I'm so hungry I could eat at Arby's.
I mean, this show has a great Arby's line. Damn it, Jack, you know I love my big beef and cheddar.
I feel like half the reason people hire, what's her name?
Isabella Rossellini?
Yeah, I feel like half the reason people hire Isabella Rossellini is just to have her say super ridiculous stuff. Like what American Dad does with Patrick Stewart.
Yes. Isabella Rossellini played Jack's first wife in the early seasons, by the way. He was divorced before the show started, but she was his first ex-wife.
She also plays an owl demon, or a bird demon of some sort, in the TV show Owl House.
Ah.
I know because I posted about, the Wendy Malick Beta Z from Lower Decks, and was immediately flooded by people telling me that I needed to watch
Owl House?
Which is weird.
We watched some of it.
We had like a couple episodes on for our kid when she was much younger, and she paid no attention to it, but people really like it. I don't know, I feel like I might be out of the part of my life where I watch stuff like that, but maybe when our kid gets a little older, she'll be interested in it.
If it's still streaming, I feel like that's one of the shows that got, like, obliterated.
Mega canceled.
Yeah.
Well, it's on Disney Plus.
Is it?
Oh, I think. I meant it's not HBO Max where.
No, but I thought it got maxed though off of HBO Plus. Disney Plus. Yeah. You know what I meant. So Liz is about to start the show, but Jack is not there, and Pete lets her know that he left something for her upstairs. She runs upstairs and sees his video suicide note, so she has to go stop him from killing himself.
We get a nice little wrap up with Tracy and Jenna, which, we didn't need it. They left their relationship on a good, thing, but it is basically how the two of them kind of became friends, really through the manipulations of everyone working on TGS. But, it is a nice moment that, they recognize a genuine connection between the two of them.
Well, and Tracy's goodbye line to her is, honestly, Jenna, I'm going out for cigarettes and I'll be back in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is nice. It's a nice callback.
Yeah.
Liz runs out to find Jack on a bridge, about to jump off, and she tries to stop him, and he jumps! She runs to the bridge, and she sees that he actually jumped onto a boat that he had waiting below the bridge. He was not ever planning to kill himself. He just needed to kind of speed run Liz, realizing that she wanted to make up with him so that he could go on his boat journey and not lose Liz's friendship, which is kind of beautiful.
Yeah, it's a horrible, horrible thing to do to someone, but as we've seen many times over the course of this show, both Jack and Liz are horrible people, so...
He said he only had 10 hours to convince her that it would be terrible to live without him. He needed her to get to that realization faster than he had time to do. He's going to go on a boat journey so he can figure out what to do with his life next. And then he and Liz have their goodbye. This is the whole episode's just like a series of really nice goodbyes. I really like this one.
Oh, it's so good. Jack gives this long speech about love.
So he says, there's a word, and it's a special word, but it's been co-opted by Hallmark and rom-coms, and I don't want to give the wrong idea, but, the bond we have, and Liz is like, I loved you too. It's so nice.
And it's kind of, it has this, it's not exactly, but it's a little bit a reflection of her thing with Chris, where he Han Solos her, and that's how she knows that he's the one. Because this is... Where
she says, I love you, and he responds, I know, after trying so hard to get her to say I love you to him.
Yeah. And this really feels like kind of the other side of that.
Yeah.
Because Jack has the I know, and then she follows it with the I love you.
Mm-hmm. So, back at 30 Rock, Jenna is singing her Rural Juror song, which is I Will Never Forget You, Rural Juror.
And it's full of nonsense words, or words that sound like nonsense words when they're placed next to one another.
And of course, in classic wrap-up style, we have kind of the song going over a montage of wrap-ups, right? So, as she sings, we get first Jack on his boat. He's gonna take off, sail around the world until he figures out what it is he's meant to do. And he gets about, 200 yards?
If that.
Out to sea before he turns around and comes back and says, Liz, I figured it out! Clear dishwashers so that you can see what's happening inside. And Liz says, yes, do that! And you know what?
Yeah?
We have a clear dishwasher, and it is amazing.
Yes.
She's right.
Yes. He's going back to GE, his first love.
Right. He doesn't say that here, but we will see him at GE shortly.
Which makes sense because it was always what he wanted. He always wanted GE.
Yeah, he didn't want to be the CEO of Cabletown. He wanted to be the CEO of GE.
And honestly, now that he's been the CEO of Cabletown, he's in a much better position to get GE.
Yeah.
Even though it was briefly.
We get the producer credit, and then we see 1 year later. And Pete is running in a 5K with a fake mustache and a baseball hat on, and his wife pulls up next to him and says, Pete, get in the car. And he's like, Paula, no, I mean, who's Pete? Damn it, I practiced this. And he gets in the car. We see Liz working on the set of Grizz and Hers.
Yes, the sitcom about Grizz running a B&B in upstate New York.
Yep. And we see Jenna accepting a Tony Award, but then it turns out that she got on stage even though she didn't win the Tony. So she just pulls down her top to flash her breasts at everybody and walks off, which...
Fantastic icon.
Yes, classic Jenna. We see Liz has her kids on set with her because she's balancing life and work now. And she calls Tracy because it's his birthday.
Yeah. Full circle.
And when Tracy picks up the phone, we see that his dad has come back!
Yes. And Jack is, he's back at work. He's presumably at GE.
We know he's at GE because the sign outside of his door says GE.
Ah.
So it's very clear that it is GE.
And he gets a sexy new assistant.
And when he meets his new sexy assistant, he does this very sitcom-y, I know this is a sitcom, but he does this very sitcom-y, like, double take that we just saw Grizz do on Grizz and Hers.
Yeah.
And the camera backs up, and we see a snow globe. It was all the imaginings of Tommy Westerfall. No, just kidding, but that's obviously what it's a reference to.
Yeah,
Wait, do I need to explain that?
I think you do need to explain the St. Elsewhere's thing, because I think enough time has passed so that people might not be familiar with it.
Okay, so at the end of the TV show St. Elsewhere, the camera like zooms out and we see a snow globe of the hospital and a nonverbal, presumably autistic kid watching the snow globe, like playing with the snow globe. And the people are looking at him and they say, I wonder what he imagines when he looks into that. So basically, all of St. Elsewhere existed in the imaginings of this child staring at a snow globe. And if you Google the Westerfall universe, this has huge implications because of crossovers. Basically, all of television exists within this kid's snow globe. And this is kind of joking, a joking reference to that. The camera backs up, and we see 30 Rock inside of a snow globe, and Kenneth is staring at it, but the whole show has not, in fact, been imagined.
Yeah. He's talking to Miss Lemon, who's a young black woman. She tells him that she has a show she wants to pitch. It's about her great-grandmother.
Yeah, it's based on the stories her great-grandmother told her about working at 30 Rock.
Yeah.
And we see that there are spaceships outside or hover cars, I guess, outside of the window, because Kenneth is an ageless being.
Yeah, and this also plays off the rule of threes, because he rejected Liz's first 2 pitches, and he loves this pitch.
Yep, he says, she pitches the show, and he says, I love it, and then that's the end. And I just have to point out that in the future, I guess Kenneth decided that woman, writer, and show within a show were okay. I guess it's okay for these audiences.
Yeah, times changed.
Mm-hmm.
This is such a perfect end to this show.
It is. Everybody's story gets wrapped up in like a really satisfying way, and there are so many callbacks to things that happened earlier that are satisfying. They don't feel gratuitous, they just feel satisfying. Yes. I mentioned the cookie jar collection because of Sarasota. I don't know how many times I've watched this show, this particular episode. This is probably my 7th, 8th, maybe even my 10th time rewatching this finale. Mm-hmm. And this was the first time that I noticed that in Kenneth's office, he has the cookie jar that Jack gives him in that episode. Like, there's just so many little things like that. And then also bigger things, like there was a runner of Jenna talking about the various times when she'd been attacked by Mickey Rourke, and she starts to do that joke with Liz and then looks straight at camera and says, I can't do this anymore, I've never met Mickey Rourke.
And there's a great bit after she does that where Liz looks in the, like, towards the direction she was looking at. Like, we cut to a different angle and Liz looks where Jenna was looking and she's clearly confused, but then she just keeps rolling with it again.
Yeah.
Okay, we haven't watched it. I showed you one episode from it. There was this show, really bad show, called Till Death.
Oh, yeah.
Where no one was watching it, but they had signed, like, they had this, like, distribution deal, so they were basically just, a lot like this, they were just putting out episodes so they wouldn't have to pay out more to not put out episodes. So the writers were kind of aware that they were working on this show that had, like, garbage ratings. Nobody was watching this show. So they got really weird in the last season. Like, the son realizes that he's on a sitcom.
Yes.
Like, he can hear the studio audience laughing. He's aware that they keep changing the actress who plays his wife. And there's a whole running thing with him being aware of the fact that he's in a sitcom. The show is not good, but those episodes are interesting because you have this really bad sitcom happening and you have this one character in the middle of it having this complete existential meltdown.
We might have to do that in a later miniseries for the what the fuck ending.
Yeah. Also,
a show that is a good show that has a similar but not exactly the same conceit is Kevin Can Fuck Himself, which, I mean, honestly, I'd like to do a whole podcast about Kevin Can Fuck Himself, not just as our miniseries. It's so good.
Such a well-constructed show.
So good. But that's a show where the scenes, it really deconstructs, like, what a sitcom is. I'm going way off track here from what you were talking about. Just, if you're interested, like, subscribe to AMC Plus for just 1 month, watch the whole show, and then cancel it. I think it's the best thing to do. But it's an incredible show. And it's only 2 seasons, and it's complete. And they clearly, like, they could have gone further, but it's a full show with a complete ending, which it's not always a guarantee.
Yeah. All right, I think we should get into our segments.
Before we talk about our segments, I just want to really quickly touch on what I think is the most important and lasting legacy of 30 Rock.
Tracy Wigfield shows. Watch Great News. It's really good.
Okay, I feel like you're joking. That's exactly what I was going to say.
No, I'm not joking. Tracy Wigfield's amazing.
I think
Stop canceling her shows.
I think the writer's room at 30 Rock was amazing, was an amazing incubator for some of the best shows that have come out in the last few years. So first of all, like you said, the Tracy Wigfield, who did Great News and then did the reboot of Saved by the Bell. Amazing.
So good. I didn't particularly watch the original show, but the reboot is so good. And her shows also play a lot with the magical realism thing.
Also, like, talk about being self-aware.
Well, the Saved by the Bell, especially the sequel series, it's a sequel series, it's not a reboot. But, like, the fact that people canonically vanish out of existence, and that's something everyone's aware of, that sometimes there are people in your life and then they just stop existing.
Right, never seen or heard from again.
Like, Slater has that little speech about his sister, or that the running gag that if you hypnotize someone twice, they die, or the episode where Mac becomes a cell phone.
Look, it is a great show. And also, the man who did Zach Morris's Trash on YouTube is one of the writers.
Yeah. Which you can definitely tell.
And, don't forget, this isn't Tracy Wigfield, but,
Girls 5 Eva.
Don't forget Girls 5 Eva. Meredith Scardino, who did Girls 5 Eva, she didn't work on 30 Rock, but she worked on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, which was Tina Fey's next show after this one. And then, of course, also in the writer's room of 30 Rock, Donald Glover.
Yes.
Like, just the talent that Tina Fey gathered together, and then them going off and creating really some of the best comedy that's come since. I really think that's the greatest legacy of 30 Rock. That and, like I said, creating the internal soundtrack of my head.
Yeah, Muffin Top, Werewolf Bar Mitzvah. Why is the Mean Girls musical so bad if her husband can write good songs?
We can't even get into that.
Time.
But I felt like I wanted to mention that because, of course, Tina Fey in the last few years has become kind of an icon of white feminism in the kind of
got mine and then got out.
More kind of insensitive to intersectionality. I think the way I'm going to put that. So I do want to.
That one episode of Kimmy Schmidt you need to skip every season.
Yeah. So I want to acknowledge kind of the problematic nature of Tina Fey while still kind of praising what she has done for comedy. So just throwing that out there. And now let's do our segments. Oh, so our first segment is kind of weird in this episode because it's how likely do you think that the finale is to stick?
Very likely.
Right?
Like, the episode ends several, maybe not several hundred, but at least...
several decades later.
Yeah. At least, I would say over 100 years later.
If anything, I think the show was very careful to eliminate this question because so many finales leave it open-ended, but this one's like, nope, these changes are all sticking.
Everyone is dead except Kenneth.
Oh, but also, even before the Kenneth bit, like the 1 year later jump ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will just go ahead and jump ahead myself to our next segment, which is, if you were going to revive this show today, how would you do it? And I feel like we're going to have the same answer because I feel like it's pretty obvious.
Oh.
Oh.
I mean, honestly, I would do it in the future. I would keep doing it in the future.
Oh, you would do her great granddaughter's show.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. Oh, what's interesting is the show she was going to do was based on the stories her mother told her. So it would be like totally new 30 Rock stories. Possibly, would it be the same cast or would it be a different cast?
No, it would be a different cast, and it would be about doing a historical comedy show based off of someone's actual life.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I would go back from the Kenneth jump forward and only jump forward like 10 years, like the actual amount of time that has passed, and they're doing a revival of TGS.
Yeah.
And also that would be great because then I could bring in Titus. We could bring in Titus instead of Tracy Morgan.
Who I don't think he would come back for it at this point.
I don't think he would. But Titus has gone to work with Tina Fey on a bunch of other things and has worked with Jane Krakowski on a lot of stuff. So I feel like he would come back for this.
All right, I think that'll take us to our final segment.
Yeah, well, our final segment is what would you change about this finale? And I think we're both pretty clear on this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like that's going to get less play in the good finales. Honestly, I might have had a Paul scene.
Yeah. If nothing else, in the 1 year later, just to...
Yeah. But, I mean, I can't complain. Like, they did a really good job wrapping up a lot of different people's storylines. I mean, maybe I would have cut down the Lutz plot a little and thrown in the Jenna failing at Broadway. Although I guess she didn't fail at Broadway.
Yeah, she didn't fail at Broadway.
Yeah, I think I would give Jenna a little more to do.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a really good 2 episodes.
Yeah, I'm with you right there. I don't have any changes to make, again, other than bringing in Paul. Or Jenna, since you took her name. So I think that wraps up this episode. Next time we're going to be talking about our What the Fuck finale. And we're going to be talking about the TV show Drop Dead Diva, which has a pretty what the fuck finale.
Yep. All right, that should about do it for this week.
Our show is partially listener supported. If you want to be one of those supporters, you can head over to our website, www.welcometotelevision.net, and click on our Patreon link. We'd like to thank our current $5 and above patrons, Beryl, Patricia, Rosa, Ryan, Maricruz, Benjamin, Kate, Jen, Dan, Anthony, and Daniel.
If you'd like to support the show in other ways, you could always rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find the show.
If you want to talk about this episode, or any episode of Great News, or Girls 5 Eva, or really any television show, you can email us at ilovetelevisionzines@gmail.com, or you can find us on Blue Sky at Welcome to Television.
So until next time, I'm Max.
And I'm Tina.
And this has been Welcome to the End. Blah.